Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I am really excited to introduce my guest for today. She's a returning guest, my friend Stephanie Lindamood. So, welcome to the podcast, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me, Anya. I appreciate it. I love being on your show.
I love you, and I love that you're back, and I absolutely love your show. So why don't you tell everyone about your show, a little bit about who you are, in case people are not familiar with you.
Awesome. So, hey guys, my name is Stephanie Lindamood. I'm a real estate agent here in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and I have a podcast called Thriving in New Home Sales. When I first was on the Anya show, it was under a different name, The Glam Life of Real Estate. So that's where you would have heard me before. But I sold over 300 homes on site before the Great Recession for new home builders. And then I've been on this side of real estate a little over 7.5 years. And I mainly specialize in listing homes. So I'm a listing specialist and I work with my builder partners, and I've listed over probably about over a little over 400 homes in the last 7.5 years. And so we're just trucking along in this awesome real estate market.
Yes. So you guys definitely want to check out Stephanie's podcast. I'll be sure to link to it in the show notes. She shares a ton of really great content. So whether you're in DFW market or outside, it doesn't really matter. You know, you want to make sure that you are following Stephanie because she always shares thebomb.com information and, definitely get on her list. She also shares a lot of great content as far as market data goes. So every single quarter, she is giving you stats specifically for DFW market. And I love that you're really dedicated to educating the sales reps about having those conversations with their customers as to, the why behind what's happening. And so that's why I wanted to bring Stephanie back on the show today is let's talk about what's going on, because obviously the real estate market is crazy hot. I mean, I don't think we've
Yes.
seen anything like this, at least in our lifetime. And I know for you, it's
Right.
specific to DFW because you guys are seeing, I want to say, like on steroids for what the rest of the
Yeah.
country is experiencing, because you in Florida, everyone seems to be moving to Texas and Florida, right? Those are
Yep.
the two hot spots for people to move. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what's going on in the market, and where do you think this is going?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to call it political flight because that's what we're seeing right now is from other parts of the country. We're getting a lot of reloads for various reasons. I mean, if you're listening in a few years from now, we're in the beginning of 2021. So we're still in what I would say is kind of pandemic coronavirus, still dealing with that. And then in addition to some political stuff that, we're all seeing with changes being made and people just wanting a different change of pace. So I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the movement. Then we've also got really low interest rates, right? So right now they're a little under 3%. We probably will see them go about 3.1 by the end of the year is what they're forecasting. But some of the things that we're seeing is even in 2020, like in Dallas Fort Worth, we were considered essential. So we could still do real estate, but I don't think you guys could in Pennsylvania, could you?
No, so we could not. We were shut down for a while, but now we are considered essential. So there are still a ton of rules, as I'm sure everywhere else. But yeah, at least we're essential.
Okay. So when Corona hit and like this time last year, essentially, we kind of didn't really know what to think about it because it was like, okay, great, everyone just stays home for a few weeks and then we all go back to work. Well, and that really didn't happen. So we didn't know what was going to happen with the real estate market, and it actually started just getting kind of busy. Like sellers wanted to still sell. We were just doing virtual appointments, and so that just trend kind of continued. And I would say by like September of this past year, October, we started, going to market with homes, and we just started seeing more and more traffic and more offers. And then suddenly, like January, December, like we've had listings where I've had 70, 80 showings and 40, 50 offers for one house, and they're offering 40, 50 grand over. We're getting price guarantees. Now that's not going to last, right? Because at some point the market will plateau out, and then we've got to figure out appraisals and all that. But basically what we're seeing in a nutshell is if you look at the whole country, listings are down because either people are not wanting to move quite yet, right? Or they're just staying hunkered in. Listings are down across the country. In Dallas Fort Worth, they're down 50 to 60% of what they were this time last year. And then we also, our days on market are super low. So across the country, I think it's right under like 4 months, depending on when you pull the data. I pulled data for Dallas Fort Worth area like in the middle of January, and we were like at less than a month's supply. In most markets, we have like 0.8 months. So literally like 3 weeks of inventory on the market. A balanced market, 6 months, right?
That's
But the
crazy.
and the problem is, to be totally frank, and I'm not negative and I'm not super positive. Like I'm pretty realistic about stuff. So I'll look at stuff and it's like the glass isn't half empty. It's not half full. It's just, it is what it is. Like the crazy thing is everyone's like, oh my gosh, real estate's so hot right now. But the problem is it's like, it depends on who you are, right? Like it's like toilet paper in 2020. The people selling it and making it, it was awesome for them. But the people trying to get it, it was like hell on earth, right? That's what it's like right now. If you're a buyer, it feels like a nightmare trying to buy a home because you're competing against 20, 30, 40 other people. And why is that, right? Is it just, it's not just Texas and Florida, because there are other cities across the country that are feeling this. A lot of it's the low interest rates. The millennial buyers are now able to buy homes, like their generation's maturing, and we're like barely millennials, right? Can we say
Yeah,
that?
we're
We're like
we're
barely.
just, yeah, we're like on a cusp, which yeah, I don't know if I consider myself millennial. It's
But so they're starting to they're growing and maturing, and they're starting to get to a point where they can afford homes. And then you also have kind of this flight from, I'm in an apartment. Do I really want to stay in an apartment with coronavirus? Like there's all these factors, right? I'm in the city. There's maybe some social unrest I'm uncomfortable with. Maybe I want to buy a house and be in the burbs now. And so there's a lot of layers to, I think, what we're seeing. I'm seeing our older clientele, they're really not wanting to move right now because they don't want to deal with people in their home. Maybe they're higher risk due to health reasons. So all the demographics are it's interesting to kind of watch, our families where they have to buy a home right now. They are the ones out looking, but kind of that perspective buyer where the stars align if they find the perfect home. I'm not seeing that happen as much because there aren't any inventory homes. Like the builders are sold out in our market to where they are shutting down sales offices, they're putting people on waiting lists, or they're taking away incentives, or they're raising prices because they're just trying to slow it down. Because then we've got material issues, we've got cost issues, a whole other thing of topics we'll talk about. We've got lots that are maybe not developed and ready because when this hit last year, people, deservingly so, presidents of companies, they didn't think housing was going to boom. They were afraid it was going to bust, right? Because
right.
what does this remind us of? '09. But what happened in '09 was we were giving loans to people that shouldn't have been getting loans. Hardly anybody had equity in their home and the prices were running up, right? So when it crashed, people just dumped their houses. That's not the case right now. The occupancy rates, the vacancy rates at an all-time low. And what's happening is more and more people have equity in their homes, and the loans that they've acquired to purchase the homes, they've had to put 3 to 5 to 10% down. So they're invested in these homes. So a lot of people think there's a bubble happening, and I don't think there's a bubble at all. I think it's, you've got a lot of people that are looking for homes because we have a housing shortage across the United States. If you look at the amount of people that need and want to be in a home, there's not enough homes for them. So it's not like this false shortage. Like I read an article the other day, it was like essentially comparing Tesla and Bitcoin to housing. And they're like, actually, housing is the one with the biggest shortage. Like it's a true shortage. There's way more people that want houses than there are homes. So I don't know if we're going to see relief for a while unless prices just get to a point where people can't afford them, which is probably what's going to happen to slow it down.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what do you see? Like, how's this ever gonna get better? Like, what's the solution here? Like, what, build more houses, or like, you know, what needs to happen?
I know.
Is it
It's
that
it's
we have
hard.
to get through this pandemic so that the older generation, because historically, the millennials been buying those older houses, I mean, maybe from the 60s or whatever, that never been fixed up at lower price point. Maybe they can take on some of those projects as their first time buyer. Historically, now none of these houses are up for sale because, again, to your point, they don't want anyone in the home. Plus, who in their right mind wants to go into, assisted living right now in the middle of this
Right.
pandemic?
Exactly.
So who knows, once it blows over, are we going to have this influx of all these older homes because now they're ready to move, but how long that's going to take? So yeah,
Right.
that's a concern because what's really going to happen, what's the solution. And then I think on the buyer side, the people that I really feel bad for are veterans, the
Yes.
first time buyers with FHA financing, USDA financing, where the problem for them is that none of the houses are going to appraise if they bid 30, 50 over ask. And so those are the people that are really kind of suffering, because unless you have cash to pay, and most of the time, the reason why they're using FHA financing, VA financing, USDA financing is because they don't have the cash to pay, right? So it's definitely concerning. And I think I was looking at the data from for 2020. Since 2005, I think we've had the highest appreciation in housing and prices. So, how fast is that going to go in 2021? Is it going to keep going, or what's going to happen? So again, nobody
Check
knows.
this out. I read a Bloomberg article the other day and it was saying that prices have gone up 93% since in the last 11 years.
Wow, that's crazy.
So like the national average, I think it's like the sales price is 314,000. So to answer your question, I don't know because I don't want to get like super political, but here's the other issue is when the current administration, and I don't want this to be taken out of context, like I don't believe that people should have housing. But when the current administration comes out and says housing is a right, and if they start to do some of the first time home buyer tax credits and or down payment assistance programs, again, don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to those things. When I was in new home sales, we had the HART program, the Nehemiah program, and they did down payment assistance. But the problem is you're going to have is unless they can get more affordable housing out to the masses, those buyers are not going to be able to exercise those benefits. So it's great that the government can say, well, this is what we're doing for you. But if there's, again, if there's no toilet paper to buy, if there's no homes to buy, it's kind of like an empty promise, right?
Mm.
So I think part of it, I think that there might be some relief in the sense of, with Silicon Valley, for example, those people that work for like, let's say Facebook or Google or big tech, they're driving in every day. Maybe they're driving in on a shuttle or a bus because they live far out for what they can afford because the area is so expensive. They get bused into these places that are working on the go. Now they're being told, hey guys, you can work from wherever you want. And I think that's the other thing is the other reason we're having the mass exodus from the big cities is because simply it's just super expensive. So if they can do their same job in live in Lake Tahoe or Montana or wherever they want to live, great, right? Well, what does that allow? That allows people, if they want to live in more remote areas, perhaps that are maybe more affordable. So I think what we might see is a situation where builders are going to possibly go out, and I'm going to always be more builder centric, especially in Dallas, because we have the land, right? So in my mind, it's not going to a city that's landlocked and figuring housing out. It's like we'll just move out. We'll just move out to another city that people don't really go to right now because it's 30 miles from downtown. But that's probably going to be the route a lot of people take to get more affordable home housing. And if they're not tied to a city or state to have to live to work, then I think that might help the situation. But what does that mean? We got to get lots developed. We've got to get the trade base in, which, like for Texas, you know, I believe that people should be here legally, but if you lessen immigration policy, we're going to get more people that can build houses faster. Let's just be real, right? And they're probably going to do it more affordably than if we have like the unions from up north. So there's a whole lot of factors. So like after the recession and housing went bust, a lot of our workers went back to Mexico and didn't come back because the work wasn't here. So now we have a labor shortage and we've had strict immigration laws, which I agree need to be here legally. But if we could figure out a way to get people over here quicker and they're here legally and that's all good, then great. But we don't have the labor force to build the homes. And then you got this little issue with coronavirus with, oh, by the way, bricks back ordered for 8 months and I-joists aren't in because the mill shut down. So there's so many layers. And the great thing about housing is it's the engine for a lot of other things in the economy.
Mhm.
The problem, but right now it's so I think to answer your question, we're not going to know for a while because even if we figure out land, we got to figure out labor and materials. And then even if we figure out that, we've got to figure out other things. So I think it's just going to be time. I think it's just going to be a process.
Yeah.
With rates being low, that definitely helps with the affordability issue because as prices go up, if the rates are still lower, if you can afford $2,500 for a mortgage, does it really matter if your interest rate's 3.25 and you're paying 400, or if your rate's 3% and you're paying 375? Like, it's just, the numbers will work itself out if rates stay low. But I think if they raise rates, which I don't think they can right now, I don't think the economy is healthy enough. I think that's where we're really going to get into trouble, because I don't think the costs will be able to go down from what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so obviously you guys have been hearing a lot about the cost of lumber going up
Yep.
and just shortage of materials. And obviously we have kind of two causes here, right? We have the issue of pandemic and mills being shut down, and as a whole, I think most of the people running the mills were thinking, oh shoot, this is going to be a recession, so
Right.
stop production, where the opposite happened. And two, we have these extra tariffs on lumber from other countries like Canada. And I know, NHB has been pushing and working with our government to try to ease some of those tariffs. And I know they were successful on the Canadian front, but still you're paying, what, instead of 20%, maybe 12% tax, so that adds to the cost. And we do have new administration coming in who, again, I'm all for go green and trying to preserve our planet for our kids. But it's also, when you have stricter rules around some of the environmental issues, that's going to cause problems for lumber production here in this country too. So I think we have a whole pile of issues going on here in the housing that it's going to be definitely interesting to see what happens. But one of the things I wanted to do today is to really talk through why the builders are increasing their prices. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know you guys sitting in your model home and you have customers coming in, and you may be having conversation with them that, hey, if you don't buy right now, tomorrow my price is going up by $5,000, $10,000. And it's not a sales tactic. I'm not trying to close you here today. This is the reality. And I think a lot of buyers don't understand what's going on, right? They may be hearing some of this stuff that's happening, the hot market, but they don't really understand where we stand. So I thought I really wanted to bring Stephanie in today because she's living, breathing this stuff. And I think you have such a great way of explaining those things, so that when you guys go back to your model home, I really wanted you to be equipped to say, like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, this is what's happening right now. And this is why you need to act right now. And if you don't, these are the potential consequences, so that you understand exactly what's going on. That I'm not just saying this to you and then tomorrow you're going to come in and be mad at me because price in fact is $10,000 higher and you didn't act on it. But I
Right.
think we have to act with compassion, and we have to continue to educate our buyers and prospective buyers, because hey, maybe they're not buying from us today, maybe tomorrow, in 6 months, whenever the market turns again, you don't want to piss off those people. So I
Right.
guess let's talk through some of the things. I want to kind of attack from a couple of different angles. So, we have an issue of no inventory and influx of buyers buying new construction. Um, I guess let's see, how do we talk about this? Because I've been saying to people that, hey, lack of inventory in the market's been great thing for new construction, which it has been until we run out of homes. Because typically people say, well, new construction, you're paying a premium. But when you're competing for an existing home in a resale market, you're also paying a huge premium, because now you're one of 20, 30 offers, and you have to go well over asking price. So you are paying a premium for that house. And then guess what? Another thing that happens is that now you have to make your offer more appealing. So you're doing things like putting more money towards the loan instead of keeping that money to maybe fix up that house down the street, down the road. And two, you're also now maybe have to waive some of those inspections going into the older home, and you have no idea if the septic tank is completely busted, and that's going to cost 30 grand out of pocket right there. So more and more new construction becomes appealing in this case, because yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more, but so is in the resale market. But at least you have a brand new home that you can still do an inspection and hopefully avoid some of those issues. So I think that was great news until again we ran out of inventory. So Stephanie, I guess my question for you is, how do we have these conversations with our buyers or with our prospective buyers so that they can easily understand that it's not a sales technique?
Yep. So let me just give you like a real life story, and maybe and then we'll kind of dive into it. So I went and I told the story on my other podcast when I was doing market conditions. I'm a dog mom. So I get my dog from the groomer, and she's like, "Hey, you're a real estate agent, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Can I ask you a question?" I'm like, "Of course." And she goes, "Hey, so my husband and I are about to retire in a few years. We're going to go down south to a city. It's called Waco. It's like 2 hours away. And we want to retire there, but I think I need a new agent." I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" And she goes, "Well, every house we look at online, when we call her to say we want to go see it, it's already sold. So I need to get a new agent. Like, this isn't working." And I said, "Okay, well, what else is going on? Like, does she have you set up on a search? Are you seeing what's available?" She's like, "Yeah, but everything's always sold." And I said, "Okay, so like," I said, "So it's not your agent." I said, "The problem is there's so much demand in the market down there, and like it is up here, something's hitting the market and it's just getting sold." And she's just looking at it, and she's so sweet, Mickey. She's super sweet. And she's like, "But there's got to be another website I can look at. There's got to be another website I can see what's available." And I said, "You can get another agent, but if you're telling me that your agent's been in the market 28 years and knows the area, it's the fact that there's more demand than there is supply. So if I were you, I would get in your car and drive down there and spend a weekend, 2 weekends, whatever. And you need to buy a property when you're down there, because stuff may not even be hitting the real market." So I equate that up here, right? So what's going on is you've got buyers that are busy. They're homeschooling their freaking kids. You know this because you're having to do it. They're going to work or trying to. They're trying to lead some sort of normal life 12 months into this freaking pandemic, which everyone's sick of. And they're like, the walls are closing in on their home and they're ready to go out and find a new one. So in our area, they'll go to a builder and they might get to walk through that front door. Because right now what's happening is the builders are selling so many, sometimes they're shutting the offices down for the rest of the month because they just can't. With the virus, there's no point in having people in the model, frankly, just to look at stuff that they can't sell them. And then they already are hedging that the construction costs are going to go up. So they don't really want to sell too many right now. If they can only start 6 or 8 a month and they've already sold 80, they've got 10 months worth of building to do, right? So they don't want to sell anymore right now necessarily, not knowing what's going to happen with refrigerators and lumber and AC units and all that, because maybe they need to increase price, right? So what's happening is buyers are going out, and if they can get into a model home, which they aren't understanding why the doors are locked, they're walking in and the salesperson's going, "Hey, how's it going?" They're going, "Great. I really would love to be in by summer." And the salesperson's like, "Of next year?" And they're like, and then they're like, "Wait, what? We're sold out. We don't have anything. These are the lots I have, but I can get you in January of 2022." And they're like, "What do you mean? Like, it's January of 2021." And they're going, "Yeah, because we've already sold." So, and this is if they haven't already lost out on 4 to 5 pre-owned homes with an agent, right? Because maybe they've already gone down that process, and if they've done that, they're completely exhausted because they've already been emotionally like on this roller coaster. So they're walking into the sales office trying to figure out what to do. And the salesperson's been trying to be helpful, but they're not really telling them what they want to hear. So then they're getting frustrated because they're like, "Wait a second, I want to buy this home, but you're telling me either it's a year out," or some builders are getting to the point where they're having them sign addendums saying if the price goes up by more than this percent, you're responsible for the accelerated price. Because the builders are just trying to protect themselves, sort of like a lender won't lock in your rate if you're a year out, right? Like, they're not going to lock it in that far out. They might lock it in 60 days out, but they're not going to hedge like that. Same thing starting to happen with some of our builders, and it's to protect them on the pricing. So what I would say is it's understanding when the buyers are walking in, a lot of them have no idea because who knows what they're hearing on the news if they're even watching the news anymore, right? And then if they do hear the news, all they're hearing is it's a hot market, the rates are low, you probably have equity in your home. And that's great news. But the other piece of it is what they're having to pay for or buy in the process that look and what that looks like. It's probably going to be extended out 3 to 5 months on the build times, depending on that builder's timeline. So that's some of the news that they're going to be needing to understand, along with, to your point, because usually the buyer's response is, well, I'll just wait. Right. If it's too painful, I'm just going to wait until prices come down. And the problem is, because it's kind of like this national issue of housing shortage, especially in some markets, I don't think it's going to come down. Like, it'd be like saying I'm going to just wait for prices in California to come down until there's a huge bust. That's probably not going to happen. You're just going to keep watching them go up, and your situation is going to get worse, whether your kids are getting bigger or what have you. And so that's where the sales counselors, in my mind, can really benefit if they can sit down, explain the market, explain it with some third party data so that it's not their opinion, because buyers are getting a little burned up right now. They're getting a little short, they're getting a little sassy because they don't like what they're hearing and they just want to lash out. And so if you've got some statistics, if you've got some information that's not just from you that you can present to your buyers, I think that's super helpful. Third party testimonials, just so that you can educate them. And it's no one's opinion. It's not you trying to rush them or anything. It's just you're educating them. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to be sold anymore, right? Like, sales is dead in that regard. That sort of selling. Buyers want to be educated and guided through a process, and they want to be able to make the decisions on their own, have enough information to make the right decision for them and their family, and feel like you have their back. And so, oh my goodness. Hi, Argentina. Hi.
This one wandered into the room.
She's making a debut.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, I know you
Yeah.
want to be podcasting too.
How old is she?
She's going to be 10 months in at the end of this month. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry about that. That
No,
is
you're
exactly
fine.
what we're talking about. That you need more space.
Exactly.
Get out of your.
Exactly.
That is my life. Homeschooling, and it's been crazy.
And so I think it helps to have a little bit of empathy. I think empathy is huge right now, right? Because again, the buyers are coming in, just like my dog groomers, like, they have no idea, not because they're stupid or anything. It's just, they don't do this every day, right? It'd be like me taking my dog to her and going like, how come he keeps scratching his ear? And she's like, well, you've never had him bathed or cleaned before. And that's her domain, right? Same thing here is, it's not because they don't, there's anything wrong with them, but they need to be educated, because let's be real, the market changes very quickly. Like, we went from normal market, seller's market, home selling in 2 weeks, to selling like literally in 3 days, where we're having to negotiate multiple offers, price guarantees, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to shift back again at some point. We're going to hit a weekend where we hit the market with 3 properties thinking they're all going to go. And then we're going to have a surprise. And it's going to be this, we're going to see it again. And it's going to be like, okay, great. That's the shift. And once you see it enough times, you realize it. But we're just in that period right now. But it helps if you can explain to the buyers what's going on and set their expectations, and then to just walk through pricing. Because again, it's not, a lot of people think, oh, the builders are getting greedy.
Yep.
Not when lumber's going up 11 grand a frame pack, and not when, appliances aren't in stock and they're having to switch vendors, and not when trades are going, well, we've got plenty of business, so unless you pay me more to frame this house, I'm moving on. So and that goes the entire supply chain of the building process, whether it's land, who's developing it, what they're charging, and on up. So the other thing is, with the holding cost, is if it normally takes the builder 6 or 7 months to build a home and close on it, and now it's taking 8 to 10, that builder still has holding costs, which means like insurance, utilities, property taxes, 3 to 4 to 5 extra months. That's hard costs that they've got to account for now.
Yeah. And so I think, you guys, it's really important that not only you have that conversation with your prospective buyers, but also reaching out to your backlog. So people who bought from you, people whose homes are going to be built. Because I think that is something that, maybe they bought, say, 6 months ago when things weren't quite so crazy. And now things are rapidly getting out of hand with pricing going up, we can't get certain things. So it's really important that you reach out to them and have those conversations, so that when you call them and say, hey, I know you spend 2 months really excruciating over that tile you wanted in your owner's bathroom and that you decided on. Well, guess what? That tile is no longer available. You have to order a new tile. And guess what? Now you can only choose between these 5 options.
Right.
Um, you know, just understand that they may not be exactly thrilled with you,
Right.
and that they may not react the way you would expect them to react. But again, they don't know what they don't know. And so your job right now is to really spend time reaching out to your backlog and having those conversations about what's going on in the market, what's going on, how it's affecting the build time, how it's affecting the things that are going into their home. And oh, by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you know, how's your life going? What's going on with your jobs? How's homeschooling? What about your home that you needed to sell before moving on? Or, did you sell that house and now your new home is not going to be ready for an extra 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
And where do you go for that 3 month period? So
Right.
just as far as damage control, it's a lot easier when you get in front of that.
Right. And we're seeing that. I mean, I've got clients where we've sold their home and their new, which is great. They're super happy. Their new home has been delayed a few months due to permitting issues. And it's like, you can just see, I mean, they're stressed. They're not liking it. I think a lot of it's keeping it in perspective. And what I always tell my clients is, look, some of this stuff, it's a temporary pain to get to the end goal, right? And the end goal is you're going to be in a home at historically low interest rates. And even if something gets discontinued at the end of the day, it's, and I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's not life or death, right? Um, okay, you may not love that tile, but what's the alternative? It's not builder XYZ. It's not that we didn't order enough. It's not that, because then you got the other issue of them wanting that discounted, right? And then wanting stuff for free. And it's like, wait a second, like, we don't control the manufacturers. We certainly want to have a good level of customer service. But at the same point in time, like, it'd be like me asking Costco to give me a discount on something else I bought because I don't have toilet paper. And it's like, they're just like, we don't have access. Like, we you know what I'm, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the same thing. Like, the builders don't control the brick, but they're the ones getting, salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
construction managers, the ones getting the flack from the customer because they're the messenger, but they're not the supplier. They have no control over whether that brick, that granite, any of that's available. All they're able to do is facilitate making a reselect. And so I guess what, if I could say anything, it's try to be as emotionless as possible from the standpoint of it. I know it's hard because everyone's, it can be stressful, but if you can just be more as matter of fact as possible, have empathy, but not getting so intertwined in the drama, because that's what it's going to be right now for a while. It just is what it is. And trying to set as proper expectations up front as possible. There's going to be stuff that you can't predict. Like, you can't predict that, hey, we just don't have this fridge for 4 months. We got to pick a new one. Like, I've got a cabin right now that I ordered outdoor furniture for 6 months ago and I still don't have it in. It is what it is. Like, we'll get it at some point, hopefully. But there's just things we can't control. I'm just glad everyone in my family is safe and healthy though. So I think it really does. You gotta keep it in perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll give you a little story on what I'm dealing with at home. So, Labor Day weekend, we decided to upgrade to a new mattress. We've had our mattress for a while, and we had a queen. And for the longest time, we thought, hey, it'd be great to go to a king. So we did. So, of course, we had to upgrade our bed to a king size bed. And we did. So I ordered the bed, and it was like 2 months later, the bed showed up. And so we threw away our previous bed to make the room for the new bed. They came in, installed, and while they were installing, there's a part missing. So they're like, okay, we're going to take this bed away. In 2 weeks, you'll have a new bed.
Oh no.
And this was, so let's see, we ordered in September, and now it is February. So we've been literally sleeping on the floor on our brand new mattress for, I don't even know how many months it's been. And so I got to the point where I was like, okay, I just want my money back at this point. Like, let me go somewhere locally to just buy a bed instead of like
Right.
ordering from somewhere. But the issue that we're having is that same deal. Like when I
Yeah.
go to a regular store that would normally have like, we call it the dump. It
Yep. We have that here. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it would have all the overflow from like
Yes.
whatever they don't
It's more like
sell.
cash and carry. Yeah.
Yeah, like no, it's they went to the model of it's something is on the floor, it's but we may not have it in stock for whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's the issue that we're running into now. It's like, okay, we got to order a brand new bed and deal deal with that, or do we look locally? And it's been a nightmare. So I can only imagine what model decorators are even going through.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think a lot of it, I think uh 2020 was a rough enough year in some regards. Unfortunately, I feel like 2021 may be just as rough, if not worse, but just in different ways because we're not getting out of this stuff as quickly as I think a lot of people hope for.
mhm.
And it's just going to throw different challenges at us. And so I just think if we can be resilient, if you're sitting in your model or your sales office and there's going to be a lot of factors, whether it's you're on a governor where you can only sell so many a month, whether you're getting price increases, whether you've got, I mean, the people on contract are happy because they've got built-in equity, right? So that's positive. It's if you've got customers that have waited and they're now coming back, or maybe programs or promotions have changed since they initially came in. It's
Mhm.
having those conversations. At the end of the day, can you basically be like, well, great, if you don't like it, you can leave, and where are you going to go? You could, but that's not really going to get you anywhere with the customer, and they still may still end up buying from you because they don't have an option, but you don't want that type of relationship with your clients, right? And so I think if you can just keep it as empathetic as possible, but still just being matter of fact, I think that's a win because again, there's only so much you can apologize for, frankly. And I feel like sometimes the more you apologize, the more customers expect. And it's
I
like, well,
agree with you.
like with being respectful, it's like, hey, you can empathize, but you don't have to bend over backwards uh, in a manner where you know it compromises kind of your position and integrity from the standpoint of the buyer's not always right, and the buyer doesn't need, they need to understand what's going on and where things are and have proper expectations, but it goes both ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes I agree. The more you apologize, the more it makes it seem like it's your fault. Where in reality, hey, explain what's going on, apologize once, and
Right.
move on. Like have them make a selection. So I think the bottom line is it's more important than ever before to make sure that you are communicating with your potential buyers, that you are communicating with your backlog, and you're really explaining to them what's happening because again, more than ever before, they don't know what they don't know, and this is not what something that they do every single day. And it's really your job as the expert to educate them. And when you educate them, I think a lot of them are going to have that aha moment and be a lot more patient, a lot more understanding, a lot more appreciative of the fact that they were able to buy a home and then
Right.
things are moving along for them. So
And I think the same thing with real estate agents, right? Like you're gonna have real estate agents calling, asking about inventory. Sometimes I hate to say I'm an agent because you just get lumped in, but it's like they don't always understand what's going on either. Like they're calling sales offices going, hey, do you have anything for March? And it's like March of 2022. And they're going, no, like I've got 9 buyers. I need to be in. There's nothing. I mean, and I'm not trying to sound negative. It's just, it is what it is. There isn't anything. And so it's even educating the agents so that they understand, so that they can then set proper expectations. Because a lot of the agents and even the salespeople, talk to my salespeople, I'm like, look, we've kind of made our year, right? And that's not a bad thing. We're building backlog for 2022, probably in the next month or two, because build times are so far out. But the reality is, a lot of people need to look at what they've got on the books for this year and probably maybe do some saving because they're not going to have the inventory that just falls in their lap that they can sell a few in the summertime and they close by the end of the year. It's not there to be had. A lot of people, though, the great thing is they have the backlog because they have sold so much, which is great. But it's just realizing that so that you have that even flow emotionally, so that you're not stressing out so much, setting the right expectations with the buyers if possible. There's going to be some surprises, and maybe tell them, hey, once your foundation pours, I'm going to give you bi-monthly, or bi-weekly, every other week, because sometimes there's not a lot that goes happens in 7 days, right? But every other week, I'm going to send you a quick text or an email or a picture of your house or just something, or have your assistant do it, so they know you are know what's going on, they know you care, or however, whether it's the builder that does it, whatever. But yeah, I think multiple touches throughout the process as far as communication with the buyers are important. And honestly, addressing stuff. The biggest thing I see is the issue is when salespeople decide not to address something with the buyer, thinking it's going to go away, and then a mountain, the molehill turns into a mountain, and it's just a mess. And then that causes a lot of stress.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. Now, you guys, if you are in DFW area and you're looking for a trusted real estate agent who can help sell your clients' homes fast so they can move into their brand new home with you, make sure you give Stephanie a call. So, Steph, why don't you plug yourself? Where can we find you? Where can we connect with you?
Awesome. So I hang out. I'm pretty much on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Instagram is Miss MS Stephanie Lindamood. And then if you want to go to stephanielindamood.com, I've got a website. You can see all my real estate stuff. You can see my podcast. I also have a blog called The Glam Girl Boss, which is going to be found there, which is just kind of fun stuff. Everything's just mainly about how to thrive in your life and business. And I'm a real estate nerd, so it all gets jumbled up there. But yeah, find me on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn and all that, but I'm most active on Instagram and then the website.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to link your information on the show notes as well. And you guys, please be sure to subscribe to Stephanie's podcast, Thriving in New Home Sales. She shares a lot of amazing information, whether you're in DFW area or elsewhere. I'm always learning something new from her every single time I listen. So thanks for being here today. And hopefully I'll have you back on the podcast very soon again.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.